Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. We have a double whammy show for you today because right now we have our first guest with us. We have Liz Oyer, who is a former pardon attorney for the DOJ. She was actually fired from her job, Senator, because of Mel Gibson. Yes, Mel Gibson, the actor. And we are going to talk about that in a little bit. And then later on, we are going to be joined by Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, to talk about some new moves at the Department of Education. But we want to say welcome to Liz first.
Thank you. I really I'm glad to be here.
It's good to have you on, Liz, and I've got to tell you, I don't know that we've ever heard from somebody who got fired because of a Hollywood actor.
I have to say that the most dismaying, upsetting thing about my firing is I feel like my legacy, to the extent I'll have one for all of time, is going to be tied to the name Mel Gibson. And frankly, his movies aren't even that good.
I was wondering about that. Like, what happens for you if you're clicking through the channel and like The Patriot or Braveheart comes on? Is it a different experience now?
It hasn't happened yet, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I would just click on through, keep moving, look for something else.
Oh my gosh. Well, we want to thank you for being here. We have to talk though. Really quickly, I mean, we'll get into Epstein because there's some questions I have for you about that. But let's just chat for a moment. Senator and Liz, jump in where you want to. The Epstein files. So yesterday, the House almost unanimously passed the bill to force the DOJ to release what it has on Epstein, 427 to 1. There was one person who voted against it from Louisiana. And then it passed the Senate with unanimous consent without objection. So, Senator, now what?
Now, the president said he was going to sign it. And then the question is for Liz. Now, Liz, now what? Because it's hard for me to believe they're actually going to release the files.
This puts the Department of Justice in a really difficult situation. So, Pam Bondi has gone on record about the Epstein files a couple of times now. She said back in February that there was a truckload of evidence and that she was releasing the first wave of it in these binders. You might remember there was this kind of like media fanfare event that happened where all these people were waving around a binder that supposedly had the first wave of documents that were going to be disclosed. And it was pitched as like this is the first of many to come. And then all of a sudden in July, there's this joint memo that's released by Bondi and Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, that says, wait, there's nothing else to see here. We're closing this out. There's no more relevant information, nothing else to say. We're done. And so that was a huge pivot in and of itself. And now she's in a position where she has been ordered to release the files. She's effectively now legally required to release the files, and her credibility is shot. So, whatever she releases will be subject to a lot of scrutiny if she releases anything at all, as to whether, it represents the full universe of documents. It'll be very interesting to see how she navigates through this very, very tricky situation.
Liz, you're an attorney. Neither Maritza or myself are attorneys. Could they just release certain names
Well,
legally?
that wouldn't be in the spirit of what the Congress is directing them to do through this legislation that passed, but certainly they could do that, and they very likely will go through there and decide how do they want to prioritize the release of these documents, what do they want to redact from the documents. There are certain legal requirements that require them to protect from public disclosure certain types of information that would include information related to victims of crimes as well as certain personal identifying information. But they can obviously manipulate and abuse that ability to redact certain information as they see fit, because that's what this Justice Department does.
That's kind of the question I was going to ask is that, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark, has been basically said, I think he went on, I can't remember which network, but he went on and said that the DOJ is currently scrubbing evidence right now. I mean, it doesn't give a lot of confidence in the system. But then also, just because there's been so much scrutiny and conspiracy theories around this, I just wonder, no matter what they release, will anybody ever believe that's really the full thing?
I don't think so. I mean, the credibility of this Justice Department is shot in the eyes of the public, especially on this issue because of the pivot that they've already done. And it's going to be really hard for anyone to believe that the efforts that they're making on this issue are in good faith. Part of the problem is that Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, her number two, they used to be Donald Trump's personal attorneys. Blanche actually represented him at the one criminal trial that he lost that resulted in his conviction on 30 plus felony counts. And he knows that his number one job is to protect Donald Trump, the man. Pam Bondi, exactly the same in terms of how she does. How she does her job. They put the interests of Donald Trump, the man, consistently always above the interests of the American people. They are running the Justice Department like it is Donald Trump's personal law firm. And that has happened at every stage of every controversial proceeding during the 10 or so months that they've been in office. And there's no reason to believe that they will handle this issue any differently. It'll be interesting to see whether they can get away with that in the eyes of a very interested public in the same way that they've been able to get away with that in the past.
So this is the Epstein. The reason Epstein is big in my mind is this is bigger in politics. This is about grown men taking advantage of little girls, and there's been enough emails. There's been enough videos put out that Trump was a part of this. There's just no doubt about it. Uh, so if they just cherry pick and release some, quite frankly, it sends a signal, I think, to the general population that this is okay. This is all right to do. You can go be a pedophile. It's okay in American society. And I've said many times, what the hell happened to the Republican Party that had moral values? They seem to be gone. And by the way, it isn't just Trump; it's the entire Congress that rubber stamps this kind of crap. But where do they move from here? I mean, the truth is, this is really, 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 really bad for society. And where does Congress move from here? Where does the American people move from here if they know they're being, hoodwinked?
Well, Congress across the board needs to stand up and perform their constitutional function, which is to push back against the powers of the executive branch when the executive branch oversteps. They're not doing that in any domain, in any way, shape, or form. And they need to start doing that much more aggressively in order to preserve the basic structure of our democracy. They have done that on this one issue, and that is encouraging. But there are lots of other areas where what we're seeing really isn't political, and there should be bipartisan outrage over some of the things that Donald Trump is doing. And the pardons he has granted to date are really one of them. He has used the
Mhm.
pardon power to enrich himself in a way that is not in the interests of the American people, not in the interests of our national security, our public safety, the integrity of our justice system. He's granting pardons that benefit him financially, politically, personally. And that sort of overlaps with the Epstein issue because many of the folks that Trump has pardoned have really just frankly terrible character by any reasonable measure. And that includes some folks who have prior histories involving serious sex offenses or who have gone on to commit new crimes involving the sexual exploitation of children, the types of people that no president of any party in our history would ever have considered granting a presidential pardon to. Donald Trump pardons them. And that's sort of part and parcel with not taking seriously the types of crimes that were committed by Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and those in that orbit.
I wanna talk more about those pardons, and, I mean, we can talk about Mel Gibson, but that's small potatoes compared to what's happening, and just yesterday, in the middle of all this chaos with Epstein, this is something that I don't think got a lot of attention yet, but I think it will, but ProPublica, published this exposé that found that the White House actually intervened on behalf of Andrew Tate and his brother, accused sex traffickers, okay, and this isn't all. We've seen for the president go after his perceived political enemies, target them. We have, of course, James Comey, Letitia James, John Bolton, and then pardon allies and more. Now, of course, there's a judge that's saying now that the government missteps in the Comey case could actually end in the dismissal of that case. But I'm just wondering, I mean, when you look at the DOJ, where you worked for, I know Senator Chester was going to ask you, how long were you at the DOJ in total?
I was at DOJ for 3 years. I've been a
Okay.
public servant with the federal government for about 13, 14 years.
So when you look at that and your time at the DOJ, you've called it before a 5-alarm fire there. So what are you hearing as every single day we see headlines like this come out? What are you hearing from your former colleagues? Like, what is morale like?
It's really terrible. There was an article published recently in the New York Times Magazine that talked with about 60 DOJ employees, past and present, and across the board, folks were expressing a lot of outrage about the way the department has been run essentially as Donald Trump's personal law firm. Issues that are political at heart are being placed above the traditional considerations of the department, which are upholding the rule of law, upholding civil rights in our country, and protecting public safety. Those traditional priorities, the core mission of the department, are taking a back seat to things like vengeance against Donald Trump's enemies, Letitia James, James Comey, and others, and frankly, using the justice system as a spoils system to reward Donald Trump's political allies and supporters, including with dismissals of prosecutions, as we saw in the Eric Adams case, and with pardons and commutations of sentence, as we've seen really broadly in cases of folks, who really don't deserve executive clemency based on the merits.
So, how many people have left? Do you have any idea on how many people left the Department of
Yeah,
Justice?
there's been some reporting saying that it's over 5,000 attorneys, just lawyers alone, have left the Department of Justice since the beginning of this administration, and the attrition has been really bad in certain areas. We've seen a lot of the most experienced national security prosecutors depart the Department of Justice, which is concerning because those are people who have very specialized expertise that is essential to responding to foreign threats to our domestic security. We've also seen basically the entire public integrity section gutted. It went from about 30 lawyers to, I believe, 2 lawyers remaining who are tasked with investigating and prosecuting corruption by public officials. That's obviously symbolic of Donald Trump's priorities. He believes that public corruption is not something that should be aggressively investigated and prosecuted. And you kind of have to ask yourself why it is that he doesn't consider that to be a priority. So these cuts have hit some critical sections where the work really isn't political, especially hard in a way that's really damaging to the integrity of the institution and to our safety and security as Americans.
So, the 5,000 that have left haven't been replaced?
Most have not been replaced, according to their reporting, and just anecdotally, based on what I'm hearing, nobody really wants to go work for the Justice Department right now. There are some folks who are still trying to hang on to their jobs there, but it becomes increasingly difficult every day to do your work without putting yourself in a position where, frankly, you could lose your bar license. People are being asked not to answer questions from judges candidly, which is sort of like the cardinal sin as a government lawyer, is to go into court and not tell the truth. But people are being asked to do that, to conceal information, to mislead courts. The Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, gave a speech to the Federalist Society a week or so ago in which he said, "We are at war with the judges. The judges are trying to rein in the president's political agenda, and we need to get people into the Department of Justice who are prepared to do battle with them, go to war against the judiciary in this country," which is just a terrifying way of thinking about how we operate as a democratic society.
So, and I'm going to let Marisa go here for a second, but I got one more question to ask. So, why should my farmer neighbors or somebody that's working in a city be worried about this stuff? Hell, it hasn't affected me. I'm still getting screwed by the tariffs. Why should I be worried about the Department of Justice?
Yeah, I'm really afraid that it's going to take a true national crisis, something really catastrophic happening in this country before people can really see how this affects all of us. The Department of Justice, since the 9/11 terrorist attacks, has been charged with proactively investigating and preventing incidents like that from happening in this country. They're also tasked with being prepared to respond immediately to something like a cyber attack on the United States, which could paralyze all of our business operations in every industry, as well as a national security threat like a terrorist event. We have essentially ridded the department of the most experienced people who know how to do that work. And that's really, really dangerous. And it may just take something really catastrophic happening. I hope and pray that it doesn't, but before everyone can see how dangerous and destructive this is.
It's really scary. It's really scary to think about people like you who've been public servants for a long time, for most of their career, and now all of a sudden they're pushed out or they leave on their own because they're standing up for what's right.
It is scary, and it's not it should also offend people across America, regardless of partisan affiliation, on some level, that our president is really profiting off of the instruments of government. He's using the Justice Department to settle scores that are personal and to enrich himself at great expense to the taxpayers. I mean, we've got people who are suffering because of the tariffs, and at the same time, he is sticking his hand into the taxpayer cookie jar and using it to benefit himself. An example of this is he is asking the Justice Department right now to pay him $240 million for having prosecuted him over the classified documents and other issues that the Supreme Court found he was immune from. So, he claims that because he was prosecuted legitimately and lawfully, he should be paid out of taxpayer money over $200 million. He's also using the pardons to enrich himself.
Mhm.
This one recently of a crypto billionaire, a man named Changpeng Zhao, who was running a crypto platform called Binance, profited the Trump family to hundreds of millions of dollars by pardoning this person. The person they pardoned was using his cryptocurrency platform, essentially allowing it to be used to promote criminal activity. So people were using his platform to send money to terrorist organizations, groups like Hamas, Al Qaeda, ISIS. And he was looking the other way, violating US laws that require him to shut down that type of activity. That's not somebody who deserves a pardon. That's somebody who's endangering the security of Americans. But what he did to get the pardon was he facilitated a $2 billion investment. That's billion with a B, into the Trump family cryptocurrency business as it was starting up. And he essentially made sure that it was able to launch successfully and quickly become hugely profitable for Donald Trump, his sons, and others in Trump's inner circle. And because of that, he was rewarded with a pardon. That should offend every single American that our president is using the justice system as a personal piggy bank, a cookie jar to reward his friends and to benefit his family financially.
So here's the problem. I don't think people believe it's happening. Is Fox News reporting on this stuff? I mean, everybody I know watches Fox News. Are they reporting on this stuff? Because I don't think they are. And let me give you just a sample. I probably talked about this on the podcast, Marie, but I've got a grandson that's going to college. One of his buddies said, "Hey, the president's donating all his salary to charity. He's not profiting at all from the presidency." People aren't hearing this information. How do we? How? I mean, Maritza's doing the best she can do, trying to drag me along. But how do we make this happen?
I think you're raising such an important point. I think that even news has become viewed as political or with skepticism, and people only trust certain sources of information. I think we need more independent media like this podcast that you guys are doing. I mean, it's a great
Yeah.
example of the importance of just getting to people directly and trying to provide trusted sources of information. That's really what I've dedicated my post DOJ time to doing as well, just using my personal experience and expertise to educate people who are not lawyers about what's going on in the
Mhm.
legal system that should really alarm them, and trying to make people understand why it matters to them and why these issues really aren't partisan, why these should be issues that we can all unify around as Americans to be concerned about.
And let me say, Liz, you're doing a fabulous job. I see you everywhere, and your videos and your explainers are easy to understand. They're not sensationalized. They are very plainly laid out from your experience, and they are so educational. I learned so much, and I thank you for all the work that you've done there. But let's talk about pardons. I know we're going to run out of time
Yeah.
here in a few moments, but okay, Listen to this, folks. 238 pardons during the first Trump administration. Any guesses, Senator, how many pardons there have been so far 10 months into the second term?
Just guessing, 10 times that many.
Yeah, 2,000. 2,000. So let's reflect on that. I mean, go ahead.
Well, and then you're going to where I'm going, and then the question is why? I mean, we talked about profitability. Is there other things?
Well, part of it is he's pardoned nearly all of the J6 defendants, right? Which um, I'm surprised we didn't hear more about that from some Republicans in Congress who lived through January 6th. But then, yeah, we should talk about that. I mean, I've never had a need for a pardon, Liz. Thankfully, I don't think Senator Tester has either. But you went through this. There was a 60 Minutes. There was a 60 Minutes appearance here in the last week. We can play it for a second if we have a minute. I'll play it here.
To apply through the Justice Department.
Oh, let me start over.
But
There we go.
Liz Oyer says that today, President Trump is using his pardon power in ways that other presidents have not.
The way he talks about pardons is very significant. Whenever he's asked about a specific case, are you going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? Are you going to pardon P. Diddy? He answers by saying, well, I could. I'm allowed to. I'm entitled to. I have the right to do it. He doesn't answer whether he will or won't do it, and people are lining up in droves.
What is at stake?
The pardon power is intended to show mercy to people who have been treated harshly by the criminal justice system. And there are many, many deserving candidates for clemency who are continuing to apply through the Justice Department. These are people who do not have the money or the political connections to go straight to the White House through the front doors, to jump the line. But many of them are truly deserving of these second chances that clemency can provide. And it is truly a shame, it is truly unjust that those people are now being overlooked in favor of the wealthy and well-connected.
Okay, so that was really well said, but I just wonder if we can talk about that for a moment because I mean the whole crypto guy and Trump said, by the way, I knew nothing about that guy. I don't even know him when he pardoned him.
He
That was
also
in his.
he also said he didn't know Epstein too. So I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
there's
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, what you're saying is there's a process, and that
Yeah.
16 report found that, like, a lot of these processes are not being documented. They're not available to the public. Like, explain that a little bit more for us because that's shocking to me.
Yeah, there is a process that has existed for over 100 years where the Justice Department vets applicants for clemency and makes recommendations to the president. At the end of the day, the president doesn't have to follow those recommendations, but if clemency is recommended by the Justice Department, you can be sure that that person has been very carefully vetted, and a pardon is not granted to somebody who has demonstrated bad character or bad conduct or who is believed by DOJ to be likely to commit future crimes. Pardons are recommended based on merit. You really, really have to work hard and distinguish yourself to earn a recommendation for a pardon from the Justice Department. I think it's important in the spirit of, Senator, the issue that you raised about what news is reporting, to acknowledge that Joe Biden did some things with the pardon power that legitimately raised doubts in the eyes
Yep.
of the public about whether the pardon power is a good thing. He pardoned his son. He
Yep.
pardoned a lot of folks preemptively who were involved in investigating the January 6 attacks. And those, my view is that those were destructive to the perceived legitimacy of the pardon power. Those were things that I think were regrettable and laid the groundwork for Donald Trump to claim, well, he did what he wanted with the pardon power, so I'm doing what I want with it. But what's different about what Trump is doing is that he is wholly ignoring the normal vetting process as well as the traditional criteria for making pardon decisions that have been in place for, like I said, 100 plus years. And he's granting pardons not based on merit, but across the board based on politics and wealth and considerations that are personal to Donald Trump. He has totally lost sight of the basic principle that the pardon power is supposed to be used only in the interests of the American people. So that's the difference there. Joe Biden, he granted some pardons to people who were very deserving. I, during my time as pardon attorney, visited a number of prisons and met some of the folks who went on to get pardons. And there are a few that really stick with me. There's a Vietnam veteran named Nathaniel Dean, who was 74 years old at the time he received executive clemency. He came back from Vietnam addicted to drugs. He earned numerous commendations for his honorable service in Vietnam, and because of his drug addiction, when he returned from service, he got involved in drugs. He committed a three strikes drug offense, and he ended up serving a life sentence for drugs. He had been seeking clemency for about 10 years before it was ultimately granted by President Biden. His mother wrote this letter that I still tear up when I think about it, that was written to President Bill Clinton saying, my son is in prison for life. I am getting older. My dying wish is to have my son home with me so that I can cook him a home cooked meal and give him a hug before I pass. She died about 10 years before he ultimately got the opportunity to come home with executive clemency. But Nathaniel Dean is just one example of thousands of people who are in prison who are deserving of consideration for executive clemency, but who are being ignored because Donald Trump is prioritizing people who have helped him financially or politically. And it's really just a tragedy for the American people and for those who are being overlooked in favor of Trump's political agenda.
Just pay to play. I do wanna ask you, I in that 60 Minutes piece, they reached out to the Department of Justice, and they released a statement that basically called you a disgruntled former employee and that everything you've said is categorically false. We don't need to say the whole statement. But are you worried? Are you worried they're gonna come after you?
So I think it's a badge of honor these days to be called a disgruntled former employee by the folks who are effectively burning the Justice Department to the ground. Does not bother me at all that they said that. I think that what's really notable about what they don't say, which is they don't disagree really with the substance of anything specific. They just chalk everything up to this is a disgruntled former employee, so therefore they must not be telling the truth, I guess. Uh, that doesn't bother me at all. I feel like this Justice Department is very vindictive, and I'm well aware of that. And I have seen what they're capable of. But, standing on principle is never the wrong thing to do. And I have no regrets about the way that I have proceeded since my firing. It's been an odd experience because there aren't as many people speaking up as I would have thought. But I think, federal prosecutors are trained to let their work speak for itself and not to speak to the media. I'm not somebody who had any experience speaking with the media or doing interviews like this before my firing. But I think that what's going on in the Justice Department is just so dangerous and so really like fundamentally imperils the future of our democracy that I couldn't live with myself if I didn't speak up about what's going on.
Let me ask you this: the politicians have a bad rap. Most people think they're on the take, or at least a lot of people do. Don't represent them. There's some truth to all of that, by the way. But the question is, Liz, this really gives lawyers a bad name. I mean, if you got lawyers out there that have been told not to break their oath and to lie, and they
Yeah.
do, that put a doesn't that put a scar on every attorney that's a good, honest attorney that's doing the right thing?
Well, it just shows the lack of leadership at the Justice Department. It sets the tone in a way that you're right, really just does sort of disgrace the entire legal profession. It came out today from the hearing in James Comey's case that someone in the Deputy Attorney General's office had instructed this lawyer arguing in court not to answer specific questions from the judge, including the question of whether there was a memo out there in which career prosecutors recommended not to bring this case against James Comey. That is just showing that this is coming from the very, very top of the Justice Department. The leaders of the Justice Department are telling people that your oath to uphold the Constitution and the law is secondary to the political agenda that we're here to enact. And that essentially makes the lawyers no different from political operatives. They're political operatives first, and lawyers and servants to our country second, or really maybe not at all.
Rule of law, the rule of law, at least at the Department of Justice, doesn't seem to exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, the damage that's been done to the credibility of the institution is going to take decades or generations to repair. And I think there is an opportunity here, so I don't wanna, wrap this up in a totally negative note.
Yes,
I
we
wanna
like
note
that.
that I came into the Justice Department having spent 10 years as a federal public defender. And so I came in with a lot of notes about how the institution could be different and better. And one thing I think we're realizing now is people don't really understand what the Justice Department is supposed to be doing when it's working well. People, like you mentioned, Senator, people in your area may not understand how this work that's happening in Washington affects their individual lives. And that's a failure of the department institutionally and something that can be addressed, something that we now know needs to be addressed urgently. There's a lot that we can do to rebuild this institution better and stronger and to make sure that it really serves the American people, regardless of party, throughout our entire country. And there will be an opportunity to do that rebuilding when this administration comes to an end.
Liz, let me just ask you one quick viewer chat question, and we have our next guest, Randy, waiting, and we thank you for your patience, Randy. But this, Herman Jacobs wants to know, is it possible that Trump could have already issued a secret commutation of Ghislaine Maxwell's sentence that's already been ordered, but that sets the date of Maxwell's release to be his last day in office? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, so I'm not a conspiracy theorist in any way, shape, or form. I actually think there is a real possibility that there are more pardons that have been written that we do not know about. And the
Oh.
reason I think that is that the pardons are no longer being announced. In the past, even in Trump's first administration, there was always a press release that accompanied the granting of a pardon so that the American people were informed this person has been pardoned and here's why they've been pardoned. That's no longer happening. The pardons are just kind of trickling out, and we're learning about some of them many days after they're actually signed, and we're not learning about them through official channels. They just pop up, here and there. And that does make me question whether there may be more pardons that we have not yet been informed of that have been signed and issued by this president. This is another area where we
Wow.
really need Congress to do more to demand transparency and accountability. The pardon power is in the Constitution, so the only way to limit it or take it away from the president is to amend the Constitution. That's a very big ask right now, given that, it took Congress weeks to even be able to negotiate a budget till January. But Congress really could very easily demand some transparency and accountability around pardons, require that the president inform the public promptly when he grants a pardon, and explain why. Explain what is the
Mhm.
rationale and how does this serve the people?
You're right. If Congress did their job, they would do that. Do you think the president would obey anything Congress does right now?
Maybe not, but I think that if we had members of Congress on both sides stepping up and demanding accountability, it would highlight the importance of the issue and it would put some pressure on him to really think about how he's using the pardon power.
Look, Liz, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that if there's been one thing that's been an incredible disappointment, it isn't Trump. Trump told us what he was going to do, and he's doing it. It's
Yeah.
Congress for not applying any level of common sense whatsoever to this equation at all. They've been gone. They've waited for the courts to do their job, and the courts really haven't done their job, and so we've got a mess.
Well,
Yeah. Go ahead.
oh, I just wanna say I know that we have gone over Liz's time, and we could talk to you for so long, and we have Randi Weingarten waiting, but I do wanna say, Liz, just thank you so much, and I hope that you'll come back and join us. Like, we could talk to you all day. There's so many issues to talk about with
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate that you're doing this to shed a light on the legal issues and why they're important to all of America because they really, really are. And it's not always communicated clearly why these issues should matter to all of us. And I really just want to emphasize that these are not political or partisan issues. These are issues that should matter to all Americans. And I'm so glad that you are covering them.
Well, and same to you. We have a lot of Liz fans in the chat, and we have a lot of people saying that they're really coming to this platform for their news, which we really appreciate. So thank you, Liz. We'll do this
Thank
again
you.
soon.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. All right, Senator, let's bring in Randy. She's been waiting patiently. Hi, Randy.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome. You are live with us here on Grounded. Sorry we went a little bit long
No
with Liz, but
problem.
there was so much.
I was in traffic anyway. Evidently, MBS being in Washington means lots of road closures. So I'm glad. So I was glad for that. I was glad to listen to Liz, I'm a big fan of hers.
So, yeah, she's great, and we do wanna let our followers know. Go make sure you go, follow, like, subscribe to Liz Oyer
Yeah,
because she
yeah.
really is just a wealth of knowledge about this issue. Did you have any takeaways, Senator, you wanted to talk about before we move
Well,
on to education?
the only thing I'd add, and if she was on, I think she would agree, that people, those out there that don't think this is important, when your bank account gets frozen because of a cyber attack or your personal information gets stolen, more than just those stealing your information, but other people get it. I'm talking about everything from Social Security to you name it. It becomes real, and that's really the problem here. There are bad guys out there that are looking to destroy this country, and we're taking the cops off the beat. It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And if you're looking for anarchy, man, oh man, this is right up your hallway.
Alright, well, let's pivot, it was just a great chat. We wanna pivot here. We have Randi Weingarten, of course, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, back with us, her second appearance here on Grounded, and we welcome you, Randy. There was a lot of news yesterday. Of course, you just mentioned it. We saw the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia in the Oval Office. That's where President Donald Trump basically said that, MBS had nothing to do with the killing of Washington Post reporter Jamal Khashoggi. That's something that American intelligence determined that Mohammed bin Salman ordered the murder of, Khashoggi. We had a federal court in Texas say that, they could not
Mhm.
use GOP-favored gerrymandered maps. That's something the governor there promises to appeal to the Supreme Court, but this headline might not have gotten a lot of attention because of all that news. But we have this, which is that the Trump administration announced steps to further dismantle the Department of Education. It didn't make a lot of headlines because of everything else that was going on yesterday, but we wanted to chat with Randi Weingarten again because last time you were on, Randy, we talked about these plans. We talked about the
Yeah.
plan to dismantle the Department of Education and what it means. So let's talk about what this new step means on a more granular level. Like, what does it mean to my kid in public school?
Right. You notice they didn't do this before the election, before the November election.
Ah.
I mean, I just because, the 65% of Americans squarely oppose eliminating it, including 64% of independents. But let me actually take a step back, which is, I mean, my members hate bureaucracy. So if so they would not normally be opposed to, like, trying to do something that is more efficient or effective, just like the senator wouldn't be opposed. Like, if they had an idea for making something more efficient or effective, you know, or talk to us about how you do that. I mean, that would be good news, and you would have Democrats or you'd have my members basically saying hallelujah. Like, but this is not that. This is basically getting rid of functions that people need in the Department of Education by, offshoring them essentially to other departments who don't know how to do that or what to do. And so it is effectively yet another way of basically abandoning our kids. And that's what, I and from the last time I was on that my union was not in favor of actually having the Department of Education. We actually thought it should stay. Al Shanker thought it should stay within HEW because we thought that kids should be nested with their families and with their parents. So and it should and but you can't actually get rid of really important functions by doing this kind of show and tell, and will take the Congress to do it. So this is just more chaos, more dispersion, more disruption, because, and this is my bottom line, because they actually don't care about the future. They don't care about kids. They don't care about kids' futures, and that's their not just abdication of responsibility, but abandonment of the future is what I care about a lot. So you take SNAP. They think about what they've done in the last few months, getting rid of SNAP when they don't have to in the middle of a shutdown, um, going after Medicaid, the CHIP program, all the programs that actually help young people, going after colleges and universities, and basically trying to strip out all the research money in exchange for because they don't think that the colleges and universities are doing enough about anti-Semitism when they themselves do nothing about anti-Semitism. Look at what just happened, with the president justifying Nick Fuentes's interview with Tucker Carlson. Basically bollocksing up and tying into knots everything about student debt. So, frankly, they don't care about kids. They don't care about what we need to do for kids and with kids. They don't care about that role, and that's what I take exception about, not trying to say, "Let's be more efficient." Of course, we should be more efficient.
Yeah, I would even go further. I don't think they care about anybody but themselves. I don't think they
That's
care about anybody but their billionaire buddies. I
Yep,
don't think I don't think they give a damn about the middle class. I don't think they give a damn about family farm agriculture. I don't think they give a damn about public education. In fact, this well, Randy, I think they've been trying to destroy it for 20 years, and I think they may well get it done. And
completely agree with you.
what has made this country the greatest country on earth? Something that the president says he wants to do, public education.
Exactly right.
Great equalizer. And
Exactly right.
problems, you and I could list the problems of public education, and they would probably be the same list. But the number one at the top, and I'll just tell you this from being a former teacher, I got out of that business because I couldn't make enough money to pay the gas to put in my pickup to drive.
Mm.
I could make more money at McDonald's than I could being a teacher. The people who influence your lives as much or more than your parents, we're not encouraging people to go into that business, okay? What the hell do you expect, okay?
Right.
It's some issues, but we could fix them, but they don't wanna fix them.
Correct.
They
Exactly right.
they wanna have you send your kids to a religious school or a school you can't afford to send them to, so you don't send them to anything, or you take them at home and they, quite frankly, in my opinion, don't get the education they need. It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen in my life. But it's just not kids. It's everybody but
Right. And
the
and that's why, I mean, I found it to be so, such poor form because it's like, right, they're losing 2 of the cultural wars that they really relied on. I mean, so the same day that overwhelmingly people voted to release the Epstein files, and at the same day or the same, week where it's clear that there's a real discomfort with disappearing our neighbors, and people want us to that we should protect our neighbor and not disappear them. So that they're just going back to yet another political cultural war, which is going after education. And Senator, you're right. What the one thing, and I went back to because I was doing a speech a couple of days ago, so I went back to something that I said in 2008, which is we will. I said to this government, I said to the public, I said to parents that we as the AFT would engage in any policy change as long as it was good for kids and fair for teachers, with one exception, and that was vouchers. Because what vouchers are about is basically destabilizing the system of public schools. It's only about, and you now see it with all the, statistics and data. It is only about taking more money away from public schools and giving it to voucher schools or giving it to religious schools. And what you're seeing is there's not a real growth in the people that are going to alternative schools. What there's a real growth in is homeschooling. But it's taking away the pluralism, the education, the neighborhood public school. I mean, in your state, Senator, the neighborhood public school may be 25 miles away, but
Yeah,
it is the
please.
Yeah.
center of community. It is the one place that becomes the center of community for pluralism, for diversity, for inclusion, and for actually teaching kids the skills and knowledge and they need for their lives and for the habits of democracy.
So, Randy, the announcement yesterday basically said they're moving all these programs, K through 12, to the Department of Labor to be managed by the Department of
Yeah.
Labor. So the question is like, does the does the Department of Labor have the knowledge, the bandwidth, the staff, the understanding to handle those programs, or is this just a stop on the way to getting rid of those programs?
It's just a stop on the way to getting rid of those programs because think about it this way. I mean, I'm laughing because the irony is so rich because in that big, ugly bill that was passed in July, one of the things that they eliminated was all the kinda they added Workforce Pell, but they eliminated all the things that paid for the workforce readiness infrastructure through the United States. It was called BIOA, and they eliminated all that. So the place they would actually you could make an argument that career tech ed training connected to workforce readiness throughout the United States, that you could nest it there. But they got rid of the infrastructure that supposedly career tech ed is going into. So it's ridiculous. And then the second thing is literally, what does the Labor Department know about how you educate kids for reading? For
Mm.
how you give kids the most important title, the most important 2 programs that we have in education are the Title I program and the IDEA program. So Title I is basically the Johnson program that helped kids have the resources they needed school by school if they were poor or disadvantaged so they could compete in society, so they could have, the resources for lowering class sizes, for devices, for reading programs, so they can compete with better funded schools. What does the Labor Department know about that? The second big program is the Individuals with Disabilities Act.
Mm.
What does the Labor Department know about that? So essentially, what they're saying, this is why I say it's abandonment of children. They're essentially saying that the department that is supposed to be working with working people, that is supposed to be working to make sure that people who are adults, are treated fairly. You're putting programs for kids in there. You're just basically abandoning kids.
Yeah.
So we have a question in the chat from our YouTube audience, and I'll expand on this. But this person says, "I fear for every special education student. What can be done to keep those kids protected?" And I'll just go further. What can we do to protect all of our kids in all of
Yeah.
these programs? What can we do?
So the one thing, the good news about the one thing the Trump administration is actually right about, except they get their dates wrong, is that public schools are basically run by states. They are not run by the federal government. Public schools are run by states and they're run by local communities. And so the federal government, the Trump administration can't actually get their mitts on that. So the key is that that what they were supposed to be doing is making things better for kids with disabilities. So, you know, several of us, the NEA, NAACP, we all have cases in court right now to actually stop the dismantlement of the Department of Education. Not because I think it's the best thing ever. As I said, my predecessor thought it should stay in HEW, but we all have, these kind of stop the chaos lawsuits that are going on. But we lost the injunction because the Supreme Court in the shadow docket said, "Oh, they're not really dismantling it. Now we will go back to revive those cases because they've made it clear they're really dismantling it." And so we will try to protect kids by going back to court. And we'll also try to do what we do throughout all the states, which is to protect kids through the states. And we'll also go to Congress to basically say, don't do this. It's an abdication responsibility. So this, the year of the 50th anniversary of IDEA, we will not only challenge this in the court of public opinion, which is why thank you for letting me be on, but we're also going to keep on challenging it in the courts and in the Congress.
Well, good luck with Congress.
Yeah.
I will say though, I have this ready to go.
Actually work. They're supposed to actually, they know that you can't change this unless they authorize it.
Yeah, here's the problem, Randy. They also know that the president isn't supposed to do tariffs. They are. That's gonna stop them.
Yeah.
I do want to add this because Senator Tester talked about teacher pay, and this was an infographic that the Washington Post put out that basically said that Elon Musk
Yeah.
is set to make more than every U.S. elementary teacher combined with his newly approved $1 trillion pay package. He will make $3 billion more per year than the 1.4 million elementary school teachers in the U.S. combined. So if you
I
want
mean,
something out.
let me just say, as part of who we are as a union movement, and we are the shareholders, meaning there's a lot of pension funds that are invested in stock, including in Tesla. And many, many of us really pushed the retirement systems of the country to vote against this pay package. And many of them did. But could you imagine a teacher's retirement system like in Florida voting for this pay package, and yet they don't actually do what they need to do in Florida to actually pay teachers? So
Mm.
they'll vote for a pay package for Elon Musk, which collectively is bigger than the pay of every elementary school teacher. But they won't take a step to deal with the pay in terms of Florida's teachers.
Sometimes you just can't help stupid. That's it seems to be a bit of a dichotomy when you're talking about teachers' retirements, and they should. Oh my God! I mean, where are we going?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, we thank you so much, Randy, for being with us. Thank you for helping us understand this better, and we'll chat again with you soon.
Thank you.
yeah. One more thing, Randy, keep up the fight. I know it's
Thank you,
got to be
Senator.
hard, but keep up the fight.
I will.
This is our country on the line from my
I will.
perspective.
Well, I wrote this book to try to do that. So, I wrote this one
Oh,
to do
yes.
that stuff.
Yes. Why fascists fear
Fascists fear
teachers.
teachers. But we will keep up the fight.
All right, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, Randy. Well, we've covered a lot today, Senator.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's been good.
And we have some breaking news that just pushed out. The DOJ is admitting that not all the grand jury members who were presented that Comey indictment saw the final version. So there's going to be some more news with that Comey indictment today. I have a feeling.
So is that kind of like inept? I mean, is that what that is? Can you help me out here? I'm not
We don't have Liz.
on grand jury indictments and that
We
kind of.
don't.
But would we call that inept? Is that what we would call that?
I think that's a fair word. Basically, I mean, the judge has said that there were missteps, right? And now there's a new hearing out today where they're saying that the DOJ did not follow proper protocol in
Here's,
this
here's
indictment.
here's what I found. I find most of the time throughout my adult life that when you find people that they're inept at one thing, they're inept at everything. And
What does
we,
that say about me?
but no, no, you're diamonds. I mean,
Thanks,
but
Senator.
Liz Oyer talked about all this stuff that could be happening with cyber and all these potential attacks on the country, and all those people are gone. And I'm telling you what, this is craziness. This is just craziness. Man, oh man, it's nuts. It doesn't make any sense. But I want to tell you something that's good, okay?
All right, let's hear it.
So I just got back from Washington D.C. I spent almost 2 days there. Visited with some friends, visited with a couple senators, got to see some friends. I got to see Warner and Bennett and
Oh,
good
nice.
people, and and just really good people. But I got to tell you something. I met somebody for the first time who's running for the United States Senate, and his name is Dan Osborne. He's running in Nebraska. And I got to tell you something. This guy's a working guy. He's a middle class guy. His wife is a waitress. Um, I was incredibly impressed by this dude. I did not meet him when he was running the last cycle. Um, but I met him, and I just think that he's exactly the kind of person that's a middle class working guy that understands the challenges that people are going through right now. I hope Nebraska puts him in office because I think he's exactly what we need, and somebody who isn't afraid to stand up and call bullshit. And I just wanted to say that because I was really impressed with this cat. He was normal. Tell you.
I bet he appreciates you saying that too.
You don't find many normal people that are running for office and for the U.S. Senate, but he's normal.
As normal as one can be.
And he ain't a Democrat. He's an independent. And
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I think he's a good dude.
Before that, you guys may have saw our episode. I can't put words together today. I haven't had enough coffee. Okay.
Was this the one with the crow flying around, that one?
Yeah, and the train. Yeah. You may have watched our episode that we did in person in Arizona. That was a fun trip. We've had a lot of people, I was going to tell you this, a lot of people clamoring, "Hey, bring your road show come to San Francisco, come to Minnesota. What do you think? Should we keep this up? Should we keep traveling around and doing these?"
I think it's a great idea, and now's the time to do it because when farming starts, I ain't gonna be able to do it.
Oh, that's right. And I can get out of the snow, maybe.
Well, yeah, but I thought you were a big skier.
I ski. I wouldn't say I'm a big skier. I ski. Yeah, no, we had a lot of fun. Arizona was just great. People were great, and we thank everybody for their patience as we worked out some technical difficulties with our shows in Arizona. But I do. Let's see. Let me see if I can pull up my little thing here. We have our graphic. There we go. Attitude check. All right, you have a new one on. What do you have on today? Let's see your hat. It looks like, is it a parachute?
It's a smoke jumper's hat.
Okay. Yay!
The season's over, but what the hell, you know? It's all
Listen,
good.
smoke jumpers are very, very, very impressive, important, critical to our fire seasons. And we have the Smoke Jumper Museum right in Missoula, Montana, where I live.
Yeah, which is exactly where I got this hat. Several
Nice.
several years ago, so it was good.
I like it. Well, we just want to thank everybody for joining us. We have people in the chat saying Osborne is the man. And somebody says, assuming Trump lets us have free and fair elections, it's going to be a blue wave in 26. And then Karen wants us to come to Memphis. Michelle wants us to come to Sarasota. Look at that. We have invitations.
So isn't Memphis where Elvis has his Graceland? Isn't that where Graceland is?
Sounds right to me.
Memphis, Tennessee? Yeah.
I've never been to Graceland or Memphis, I don't think.
Yeah. It's because you always go to Disneyland, but that's okay. We won't.
Well, that's true. That's
there.
true. That's my favorite place to dissociate. So yes, we would love to do that. We're going to talk more about that. When Senator Tester says he's going to go out on the road for meetings, I'm just going to say, hey, I'm coming along again. And Grand Forks, North Dakota, that's easy. That's a neighbor state. But we just want to thank you all.
That's
What?
not good in the wintertime. Grand Forks isn't good in the wintertime, man. It gets cold there. I mean, hey, but that's okay. Well, we got to be tough if you're from Grand Forks.
Yeah, you are tough if you're from Grand Forks. So thank you for joining us here. We appreciate all the comments just of support and this community. It's really it's just wonderful. It's wonderful to be in this community with you all. We want to thank everybody. We want to thank our guests, Liz Oyer and Randi Weingarten, for educating us on what is happening within these departments in our federal government. You can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. You can shoot us an email anytime at groundedpcast@gmail.com. And we want to thank our friends at Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. Anything else I'm missing?
Howdy ho!
Woo! Thanks, guys.
See you later.